Larsen with the Operations Process Excellence Group of CSX Transportation. CSX has undertaken in the past few years an enterprise-wide effort to develop asset management systems as part of our overall enterprise asset management strategy. Today I'll provide a high-level overview of the presentation we'll be giving at the Solutions 2.0 conference in July. I hope you can attend. The status of this is our first effort in asset management, which encompasses getting our arms around our facilities spread over the entire eastern U.S. Here you can see the planned agenda. I'll quickly cover what CSX is, why we thought we needed to go with an enterprise asset management system, how we developed a steering committee to provide oversight, where we've gone in a 5-year roadmap where we are today, some of the lessons we've learned, benefits we've seen, and where we are with the mobility solution to allow our field personnel to access the system readily. Quick overview, we are a leading supplier of ground-based freight transportation in North America. We are one of 4 U.S. Class I railroads with about 21,000 route miles of track in 23 states, District of Columbia, and Canadian provinces of Ontario and Quebec. So why do we want to put our facilities maintenance into enterprise asset management system? Historically, it's not been a railroad area of focus. We have a large number of facilities dispersed over the entire eastern U.S., and our manpower, capital, and OE are all limited. Those things tend to go towards our primary function of moving rail freight expeditiously. We acknowledge that our building age and condition have issues. Our maintenance has been fixed when it breaks with no real chance of getting ahead and getting into the really preventive and predictive. And we have a large amount of undocumented deferred maintenance. What we started with was a 2004 hard copy of buildings, which when we went out and inventoried the buildings, we found that there were just foundations there, or in some cases, nothing there. So we had a really weak amount of information about our facilities. Also, we had multiple internal departments who owned the facilities, that maintained them, that operated in them. And the replacement cycle was slow. It was something that was going to have to be worked on over time. It was not something that we could make improvements on quickly. So what does it look like out there? We have over 5,000 structures and about 13 million square feet. They're controlled by various groups and within the company. We consider about almost 1,900 of the major structures, which are our larger buildings, offices, the maintenance facilities for cars and locomotives, those types of things. We have 6,700 major terminals, but closer to, as you can see on the map right now, each one of those dots is a yard of some type where there are facilities. So it's well over 1,000 different locations where we have these. And the facilities' full-time employees are very limited. There's about 50 managers, several hundred contract union employees, and some contractors. Otherwise, we have to contract out work, which is done locally and not well controlled from the high level. So to get our arms around it initially, if you come to the conference, you'll hear more about ISO 55000. The strategic asset management plan, SAM, looks at how do we organize within this enterprise asset management scheme. One of the groups is the facilities working group, is the steering committee, which established the vision you can see, objectives of establishing a common inventory, developing a thorough understanding of the nature and use of our buildings and their condition, to improve coordination across all the departments. And we look at all of the buildings, but not the contained work-purpose equipment. So the air conditioning would be in scope, the cranes and other machines in a building would be out of scope. And we have participation throughout the company. Everybody was invited and required to attend. So what was the methodology? We framed the current situation. Who has what where? Do we own it? Do we lease it? Do we know? What is the assessed condition of the facility? More on that in a little bit. How we assess and how we keep those assessments level across the plant. Who is responsible and how is the OE budget spent? We need to look at improvement opportunities. Talking across departments, just opening establishing those lines of communication and sharing best practices is the key. We have to prioritize our capital and OE, and we have to look at the allocation and who controls that. Is the money in the right hands to do the best thing for the company? Some of the limiting factors we have, being a railroad, we have one of the oldest. The B&O was the first U.S. railroad. We still have labor agreements from that railroad mixed in with our current agreements. So we have labor agreements are definitely a limiting factor into what we can do, where our flexibility is. The availability of budget. We're a public company. We can only spend so much capital. We can only do so much. And we are an operating company. We can't stop the machine. The trains need to go. We can't take something down. We have to work within those bounds. So what do we look at in 5 years? We started really in about 2011 to look at a tool. How are we going to do this? What are we going to do? We developed an overall vision. We looked at tool selection and how to prove that concept that it would work. The tool we've set off is Maximo for our work order system. And we moved forward in securing that and understanding that with training. Most of the programming is done in-house. We then, as I mentioned, our inventory was very poor. We had to go out and collect the inventory. That meant site visits to all locations to get not only our system not only has a lap lot of the building, but has a picture of the building to help with identification, make sure the work order is assigned to the right building. Develop basic work order request processes, and develop and work on the initial rollout to get the status of the buildings and the current work orders into the system that were outstanding. Following that, we gave access to the field to get them to provide the input to the comparison system. Last year, we got the mobility system done, which is done on Android devices. We have reporting, we have dashboards. We've linked it to our GIS system and expanded the inventory. So instead of just buildings, we're now throwing in things like the AC&R system, the HVAC, those types of things to expand what's there and what we're working on. Right now, we're working on increasing the automation, metrics, dashboard, trying to gain the value that we anticipate out of this system. Going forward, continuing the GIS integration with the rail system portion of this, looking at linear asset management, tying all of that so that we can look at these stationary assets and try and drive down to a point where we can understand the spend within a segmented area of rail power divisions and subdivisions that we have. Some of the challenges in building that Maximo tool, there are site and organizational challenges. When you're building it, and we'll talk more about that at the conference, how we've configured Maximo to work with us. Initially, we went with multiple site words. We had to go back to a single one. Classifying buildings, trying to figure out how far down to classify and to go in a description of the building, as opposed to be able to find it and work on it, as opposed to being able to pull the data up and get what we need was difficult. Location challenges, mobile integration, there are a lot of things that are Maximo specific that we discussed. So what benefits did we get out of that? We have a centralized system for reporting facility issues. First, our tax and other folks were thrilled that we actually had a valid inventory. We now have a way for everybody online to report issues, and it still allows for hotline calls for water main breaks and other critical items that might be out there. It enables us to see the body of work that's out there and prioritize that work. It's driven efficiency to be able to do more with the same. We can talk about the measures at the conference, but 33% faster response time. When we implemented the system back in 11-12 until now, these work items that are being entered are being responded to and corrected at a much faster pace. And our labor efficiency has gone up markedly also, 25%. Managers have accountability to address the issues. The other levels of their chain of command, as well as the field, can see what is open, where it's open, and ask the questions, why are we not addressing this? What do you need? How can we make it better? It also allows control of field behavior. Again, we have that visibility to the work that's out there, and it pushes for preventive maintenance, prioritization, and scheduling. We understand what's out there, what work is there. We prioritize what preventive maintenance we can do, what we need to defer. Before we were pretty much deferring or allowing based on local decisions and not from a company-wide best practice. Within the Maximo tool, we have Cognos reporting, the team dashboards that will be described in detail at the seminar. Asset reporting, labor details, service requests, work orders, all of that, the spend, all of the things that are available straight out of Maximo and help a great deal in understanding where we are and what we're doing. Some more black and white benefits. Trains, brakes, work on air. Every yard has a large amount of compressed air. The single biggest electrical spend for our company is air compressors. There was no way to determine whether we had leaks other than once a year we went out and tested and see if it bled down, and that was if the local groups did it. Now what we've done is we have a preventive maintenance in there where the group every month will go in and we'll do the load hours and the run hours. On the screen you can see how the load hours were ramping up. The original had been well down in the 25 or 30% if you've taken it back into 08, 09. And we can now detect leakage occurring in advance. And for the screen you can see that from a relatively inexpensive repair, a payback of about a year, we're saving $3,000 a month in one location on the system in Augusta, Georgia. Another way we looked at it was we have a PM in to do building assessments. Now that's requiring a standardized form and training to allow it to occur. But what you're looking at on the chart here is a grouping of our buildings, of about 150 buildings, from the lowest score up to the highest score, which runs 0 to 100. And we've gone out and based on our studies, have determined that 60 is where we meet standards and above. In the 30 to 60, we're not at a point where we need to replace it. We can do some capital improvements and rebuild and use it. And generally, we have to replace it when it gets down to the 30. There's serious foundation or other major issues that are too serious to repair. The numbers that are on the screen, the 250 a square foot for meet standards are the maintenance costs. Those are based on industry norms and what we feel we're spending at CSX. To maintain one that's slightly below standards is more expensive and much more expensive when you get down into that below standard group. Also, we have some capital rebuild costs of about 85 a square foot for the rebuild versus replace 200 a square foot. What that's allowed us to do is look at what we have outstanding. If we need all these buildings and can't consolidate, where do we need to go? So we've taken that and gone on and said, all right, if I have this right now, what does it take me to get up to the point where everything is below standards, but not at the replace level, and move it on up. And from that, we've been able to take a look at how much capital it will cost the company to be able to get up to a point where it is in the meet standards requirements, which then can be spread across multiple years. And we're also looking at the degradation of buildings, of course, that meet standards at 250 a square foot. That maintains them, but at some point they still fall down below the rebuild versus replace. So an awful lot can be gleaned from just knowing what you have out there and what its current conditions. Getting into our mobile, we'll at the Solutions Conference we will have a live demo, which is pretty interesting in how they can look at it. What we've looked at from the beginning of our mobile implementation, we've greatly improved the performance. We have over 200 now users logged in that are using the facility mobile piece, which mostly are maintenance people in the field. And we've closed a good deal from mobile. They're using it out in the field, which gathers all of their man hours and material uses, and as opposed to waiting until they go back in, which means as they have free time, they're able to close it, and it gets us more productivity. That number has come up recently above the 7%. It's clicking up obviously all the time. We'll also talk about what a work order is, how it works both in the Maximo system as well as in the mobile system. and how we can view work orders within the system that allows the application to work, which is using an Android smartphone device is what our people have. So again, that is a quick high-level overview. There'll be much more detail. I hope everyone can come see the closing keynote, which is Thursday, July the 31st at 1:15. Myself and Jim Bolton will be there, who's our facilities manager, to run through a much more in-depth presentation and also be able to answer your questions. Thank you very much for attending today.